really point to the areas that you need to work on and improve. We had a town hall meeting right after the board meeting last month. And we learned that we needed to do more listening and learning to our community. We had some very, very passionate parents at that meeting. And so from there, we created focus groups. We asked for parent representatives from each of our dual language and Spanish immersion classrooms and several of our teachers that came together, and we also asked for feedback, and we opened the feedback up. I think we were open for about 2 weeks for feedback. We got about 87 pages of notes and feedback from different people in the community, parents, teachers, and so we took all of that information and we developed 2 themes, and we took those themes to the focus group, and that group decided somewhat on our path forward. And then we had our town hall to decide, to present the decision from the focus group, and that was, I think, just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, just a week ago. So moving forward, the focus group decided to go forward with what we're calling the phase plan. That is to maintain robust support for our dual language classes. We are not making any changes to dual language. We are required to provide a dual language classroom for our English language learners. And we need to provide more support for those classrooms. We've also decided to continue with our commitment to our classes in the Spanish immersion classroom, to finish those classes through the end of the 5th grade. There was a lot of conversation about going through the end of the 3rd grade, but that was not really research-based. You don't have the positive impact down the line if you stop at 3rd grade, so we really think we need to go through the 5th grade with the current SI cohort. The Spanish immersion cohort right now is only pre-K, K, and first. We only have those 3 classes, so roughly about 58 kids.
You mentioned our commitment. What commitment did we make to anybody that this had to go through the 5th grade? When you said it's better to do that, I got that, but when I looked at it, I wasn't sure that the board or the district ever committed to anything.
You know, we entered into an agreement with our parents when they started in pre-K that the parents would pay tuition for a Spanish immersion or dual language platform. And our commitment back then, our compact was that this would go through the end of the 5th grade. So that, I mean, it was an internal kind of in-house commitment. I don't think it's a legal commitment, but it was definitely a commitment that the school district made to the parents.
I mean, though it was a sort of trial basis still, right? I mean, looking to see if this works and report it, all those.
I was not here when all of that, and to be honest with you, when the Spanish immersion program came into effect, it was the result of a clerical error in terms of drawing names for the dual language program. So that's when the Spanish immersion group was started, and to be honest with you, we sort of bit off a little more than we can chew. Well, I mean, that's going to be my part. Is just I want to be able to do these programs well, not just check the box. We've done all these, we've offered these programs. I want to do them right.
So I would add to that, James, is, you know, when you look at it in the structure of the SI program, it was starting off in the pre-K, and then, you know, as you step, I mean, that's a 90% Spanish, 10% English. And so as you move through, then you progress more to English. So trying to cut that off in the middle is, I think it's disadvantage to the kids from that standpoint. Just because the program was based on a full pre-K through 5th grade, when you look at the structure.
Thank you. We are working hard to repurpose. We just started with an interventionist for the dual language Spanish immersion programs, and we're working really hard to repurpose that position so that person's a part-time interventionist to support and serve kids, and flip 50% of their day to serve teachers, to work with teachers. That's a piece that's been sorely needed. We've got a young group of Spanish immersion and dual language teachers who don't have a lot of support, and that's tough. None of us, you know, I could walk into those classrooms today and I couldn't tell you the level of questionings that they're asking, because like you said, the instruction's all in Spanish. So it's definitely been a needed area to support our teachers with lesson planning and lesson execution. At this point, the decision was to have a possible freeze on pre-K Spanish immersion recruitment moving forward, meaning we would only recruit for the dual language spots and not the Spanish immersion spots moving forward. Work ahead, again, we've got heavy lifting to do. And this was really the basis of what the IPSC program evaluation outlined. We need to have program guidelines, not only for us and our internal decisions, but also so that our community and our parents know exactly what they're getting into. We've got to have an operating manual, and all of this takes time to create all of these pieces. We need our framework design. You talked about the 90-10 model, and then we heard from a parent earlier who talked about the 50-50 model. What does that mean? What are the impact? What's the difference? We've got to spell all of those pieces out. We've got to develop metrics so that we're evaluating language acquisition for our students in these programs. Right now, we're kind of all over the map, and we've had parents that have asked us for data. What's the progress data? And we don't have it to give to them to evaluate our programs. We need a very clear professional development plan for our teachers and instructional support, and that's that repurposing that coach position. Speed bumps, like all of our programs, this program in particular has some very unique speed bumps. Obviously, we have a teacher shortage. That's why we've had to go to 50-50 model. We lost a teacher just last week. Teachers with the bilingual certification are very difficult to find. And this is not a Livonia problem, this is a state problem. Class size limits. If a class size, we're obviously working hard to maximize all of our classes right now. And when you lose students over time in a Spanish immersion or dual language classroom, you can't just put another student in that classroom. So some of those classes, not many, some of them are very, very small. I think one only has 10 or 11 students in it. And that's not necessarily an efficient way, to run. We also have new English language arts, Spanish language arts TEKs. So we've talked earlier about the frameworks that we're creating. We've got to create all of those frameworks based on the new TEKs. Interestingly, the Commissioner of Education does not recognize Spanish immersion as a legitimate program for offering a second language acquisition model. So dual language are the only kids who go through the dual language program. Those are the only kids who will be eligible for that Spanish 1 credit in high school. Our Spanish immersion kids can take a credit by exam, but they don't automatically get it like our dual language students will. This is new. The Texas Administrative Code is now saying that our students in the 3rd grade who are in our Spanish immersion classes will not be eligible to take they will not be eligible to take a Spanish STAR test. They will have to take an English STAR test. All of their instruction will be in Spanish. We know ahead of time, our oldest class right now is 1st grade, so I think we can get prepared for that, and I honestly don't think it's going to be a problem for us, but that's not the point. It's just, again, it's just another speed bump. And then resourcing, finding staff, finding materials that are quality materials. We have a really hard time finding equitable materials. And then developing the frameworks for that. So here we are. We really need to come together, I think, to have a conversation about our best next steps with this program model. Many of our parents are anxious, our teachers are anxious about what our best next steps are. So, I'd like to request a workshop, a discussion at some point to sit down and figure out the best next steps as soon as we can. And so that's the update. That's where we are today.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. So, Ms. First members of the board, so as Dr. Wood presented, so we're continuing, we'll add the 4th grade next year in dual language, which will be recruiting another bilingual teacher. And then we're committing the pre-KK1 Spanish immersion, continuing that cohort up. And then right now there's a possible freeze on the pre-K until we seek further guidance from the trustees in terms of what we need to do moving forward. And I think that's where, I wasn't here when the program started. I know Dr. Wood wasn't either, and I know the question about the commitment. And so we have very passionate parents and excited parents about wanting to do what they can to do their part for us, and so we just need to have a conversation. Obviously, Dr. Grigg referenced earlier, we've got some work to do on budget, and so we really want to circle back. I know that parents are anxious. Many of the parents of pre-K kids are needing to let their daycares know by April 1st. And so one of the things that we'll ask later is for a day, a commitment for all of us to sit down to really talk about, we can dive deep into our budget situation, some of the things that we talked about for our TASB staffing, as well as also put this on the table to have looking at program model, as well as what that would look like in terms of sustaining it as is, or go ahead and transition into a possible freezing. We do have a legislative year, and so there might be some relief coming from the state on that, but there's no guarantee on that. So one of the things that we did talk about with the focus groups is possibly freezing it for 1 year, and then if we got some relief from finances, then reinserting into kinder. There's some research about that as well. So, but that's kind of where we are right now. Anybody that's currently in the program of dual language and Spanish version, we are committed to seeing them through and doing our very best to provide them the best quality education and curriculum that we can, honoring the commitment that the prior administration took over. So as we try to tackle this moving forward, we really would need some time and some guidance from the board on how to approach this subject.
So I will add, I had the opportunity to participate in the focus group and the town hall meeting. So it was very, very enlightening for me, and I appreciate Dr. Wood, Dr. Lvisd for hosting that as well, and the opportunity I had to participate. So it is very, very enlightening. I learned a lot about that. Been able to visit with some parents and learn more about the program. And as Dr. Lvisd said, there are some passion behind this program. I know that TBD is the big monster. Trying to figure out what that looks like and really getting that information back to the parents, as you stated, because they got to start making credits for the pre-K school year. The other thing, I know that there was a bunch of questions in regards to data and information from both the focus group and the town hall meeting. So I'm hoping in that some point that we're able to follow up with some of that data, some of that information that was asked during those meetings. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I have two questions. So, and maybe you answer this, or from the focus groups and the town halls, so was any of the passion from folks not involved in the program? Was there non-biased passion?
Was there non-biased passion? That's a great question, and I'm going to have to defer to some of our local.
So I would say most of the people that I was aware of that participated in it had kids currently in one of the programs, whether it's dual language or Spanish immersion, but also not ones that are currently in there, but anticipate some that are coming in. So more that are currently in the program.
Okay. And the IPSI report, why did we do that?
Why did we do that? We really wanted an outside lens that has an expertise in this particular area to come in and evaluate our program and to determine the extent to which we were compliant with all of the pieces we need to have in place. So the slide that had the program manual, operating guidelines, all those pieces, we don't currently have all of those in place. So we just wanted an outside lens that had an expert to come in and tell us where are we doing well and what do we need to have in place.
So is it fair to say we did that because we believed the program was not meeting expectations?
We knew we had some opportunities to get better and to strengthen the program. So we wanted, but there were a lot of different ideas about where we should focus to strengthen the program. So I guess we just needed someone to help guide what are the best next steps for us to take.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
We'll move on to discussion and action items. First item is consent agenda. Items to be approved in one all-encompassing motion. If discussion is desired on a particular item, it will be removed from the consent agenda. the minutes from the January 22nd, 2019 regular meeting, minutes of the February 4th, 2019 board workshop, and financials.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next item is consider and approve a resolution authorizing defeasance and redemption of certain outstanding bonds. Mr. Wilkes.
Ms. Berkowitz, Mr. Wilkes is making his way. As you know, we had an opportunity presented previously that we would have an opportunity to defease, to save on some debt, and Mr. Wilkes is here tonight to go over some multiple options with you this evening, and then there is a resolution at the end that would need to be approved in order to do this.
Thank you, Dr. Lvisd. Madam President, members of the board, my pleasure to be with you tonight. We are here to consider approving a cash defeasance of effectively $1,690,000 from your Series 2012 bonds. This is something that y'all have done the last couple of years. This is, I think, the second year for the cash defeasance, although we used some money from INS fund balance in the 17 refunding to refund some of the bonds. What this will do is we will defease maturities 2024 through 2028, $1,690,000. To the call date 8/15/21. If you have, I think, the packet that's probably in your board packet, and I have handouts here. If it'd be easier, I could hand those out, whatever's easiest. Oh, sure. I think some of this has maybe been in your board packet, but it'd be easier for us to go through it when we're all looking at the same data. What Dr. Lvisd is handing out, if you'll flip to the very first page, we just have a timetable of events in there. If you approve the resolution tonight, we will go out tomorrow and subscribe for slugs, which is the investment component to the call date. Then we'll close the transaction on the 27th this month. So this will defease, again, $1,690,000 out of the Series 2012 bonds. If you'll go back behind the timetable and distribution list of just the parties involved, there's a set of numbers. It's actually the third page in your packet. That's number 1 on the right, top right-hand corner of the page. The district will contribute $1,750,000 from INS fund balance. That will be used again to defease $1,690,000 of bonds plus interest to the call date August 15/21. If you'll look at page 2 of the handout, this is a savings schedule. It just kind of shows what the cash flow savings will be for that period of time. $2,093,000 in cash flow savings, a present value savings of $345,000. On page 3, you can see the percentage savings. A lot of times when we're looking at refundings, we're looking at what kind of percentage PD savings are we obtaining, and a little over 20%. So it's a pretty large amount of PD savings. Usually anytime we're doing something with 3% or greater, it's probably economically advantageous. Page 4 just shows the maturities that are being defeased out of Series 2012. Again, 2024 through 2028, $1,690,000. And the rest of this is just kind of numbers showing what was in the debt prior and so forth. So that is effectively what we are proposing tonight. And I think in your board packet, we've gone back and did a review of kind of what you've done in either refunding bonds or defeasing bonds since 2012. And that, I think, totals about $11.4 million in cash flow savings. There it is, since 2012. The top left-hand corner there, delivery date, we did a refunding in 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, where we refinanced bonds, achieved about a $8.3 million in cash flow savings just from refinancing. And then the last 2 years, you've done a cash defeasance in 18, another one now. You did $900,000 last year, $1,750,000 this year. A total cash flow savings of over $3 million, almost $3.1 million. So a combined savings of about 11.4 through that process. Yes, sir.
Where does it show what our total net?
Well, I don't have a handout that shows that. I can tell you.
30,
I can tell you.
38.
That's good enough. 38.
That's the principal, not the interest.
after this is 38.
Before. So this will take it down about almost $1.7 million. Yeah, $1.690 million.
We'll only see 36.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation? What is your recommendation for fund balance for the debt service line?
Well, I would say for your district, because of the 6/30 fiscal year end, and y'all got a big interest, principal and interest payment due in August, so you've got to have it available because you don't have time to collect it. I would probably say at this point about whatever that payment is, which is roughly for y'all about 2.6 million, 2.7 million. So that's absolute minimum. And you'd want to have a little more than that because just in case you have some taxpayers that don't pay or a large corporation that can't pay or goes bankrupt or whatever, I'd say probably $3 million is a bottom number.
So 2.7 for the payment that's made in August, and then another 300,000 is your recommendation?
Well, another 10% of your debt. So as debt rises, 10 or 15% of your debt, something like that.
So what is our fund balance for S&I after
I think, I don't know what your audit was. What was your INS fund balance for 18? 5.6? 5.6. So this will take it
5.6,
down.
but then you take the 2.7 out because that's a required payment, plus another 300,000. So 5.6 minus 3 million. So really, 2.6 is what we should be paying down.
when you say paying down this?
Right,
You have to take the fees for the fees.
I think our plan has been to kind of draw that down pretty quickly as best we can. I think the administration wanted to do $1,750,000 roughly this year, and then we'll have possibly that to be next year. There may be some other needs coming up on the horizon based on some of the report I saw earlier. The other thing you can do with INS fund balance is you can use it to buy down the tax rate. Those are the only two options, the INS tax rate. So it could be a beneficial later.
In the board packet, there was two options. I only heard one option. What's the two options?
So the first one's $1 million, correct?
So which one is he talking about?
1.7. So the $1 million is just the amount that we're over the required payment.
So we're just adding a little more to it.
To as he, Mr. Wilkes mentioned, is to kind of work down the fund balance.
Just trying to remember, even there's one, this is the second option.
Correct. The first one was for 1 million, and the
I
second,
like the second option.
the second one was for 1.75, which would take roughly $750,000 out of the INS fund balance.
which is needed.
Which we have to do.
So just to make sure I understand, so out of the INS funds, which is collected through tax base,
Correct.
but when it goes into that fund balance, you can only use that, to my understanding, to pay down your current debt.
Correct.
Okay, so we can't take some of this fund balance that's in INS because that's designated by the, I guess our debts or our debt. We can't use that on the slide that we watched a while ago that we're
The operating and maintenance.
the operating and maintenance side. So it's really two separate
That's
buckets.
right.
Okay.
There's two funds. There's a general operating fund, which is collected, the local tax is collected in your M&O tax rate, maintenance operations tax
Right.
rate. And that goes for operations and salaries and so forth. The other component is INS, interest and sinking for debt service. The only way you can tax that is to pay off voted debt.
Okay.
And then-
When we set the tax rate, we advertised, it was done, you know, this part was gonna be the pay down debt.
Okay, very good.
So what would be the downside if we only did the 1 million instead of the 1.7?
Well, I think, I don't know if there's a downside between those two numbers, really. I think we're wanting to lower that INS fund balance over time. So this is a pretty good hit at it. It's an extra 750,000. Maybe we can do another 750 or more next year. And then kind of see where we are in terms of what the fund balance is. And possibly there's another year that we could do that. You've actually, and you can't really see it, but in the 2017 series, you also took an extra 750,000 out of fund balance. We didn't cash to fees it, but we used it to pay off bonds in the 17 bonds. So you've actually been, you've taken out of the last 3 years, 750, 900, now 1,750,000. We've got a little bit more to go to get it down to somewhere in that 3 to 3.5 probably number, somewhere in that range.
Okay, so we're not limiting ourselves by being able to do something next year by keeping the additional 750 in it? There's not another opportunity, I guess I'm just not.
The only other thing you can do, the only other thing you can do is,
Yeah.
the only other thing you can do with your fund balance for INS is buy down the tax rate. So effectively what you do is you say, look, we're gonna take this extra money, we're gonna pay off, we're gonna pay it on debt service, and then lower the tax rate 5 cents or 3 cents or whatever.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
You effectively are using it to pay off debt.
right, just your comment on the 20%, like we get a 20% benefit by doing that right now, right?
Well, I'm just saying on these numbers, what is the present value savings of what you're doing? It's a little over 20%.
Right. Okay.
Bond counsel is not here tonight, but they have sent, I think, I'm looking, Chris, maybe shaking your head that you got all the, okay, she's got the resolution to be executed, should you choose to do so.
So one benefit is we're saving money.
Absolutely.
Based on the
Yeah.
interest, and we've seen how we've done that historically. You know, from another benefit would be, I guess my understanding is in the future, it increases our borrowing capacity.
Correct. I mean, absolutely. What y'all been trying to do is the fees bonds, refund bonds and the fees bonds to get your debt down as low as possible because you're likely going to need new facilities in some area at some point. And so the lower you can get your debt, the better.
The way I like to look at it, we're paying more than the minimum amount on our credit card.
Yeah, so and I don't know, I would assume the interest rate that we're gaining on the money that's sitting in the fund balance is less than the money that we're gonna save.
I would think so.
I mean, that's just kind of one of those back of the envelope tests to make sure, hey, am I using this money wisely? Can I gain interest on this fund balance?
You are, and I'll give you a little bit of a, on the bonds that are being defeased, you are paying 3.22% on that money, average coupon.
So I would.
I don't
suspect-
think you're earning that at all, anywhere close to that in your fund
Right,
balance.
so it kind of makes sense, using the money wisely.
Absolutely. Never a bad idea to pay down debt.
When is our next bond able to be refunded?
It's this 12 series in
2021.
21. So we're still two and a half years away.
So after we do